I ran a marathon recently. It's a hard thing to do to run a marathon, but it was made personally difficult by the idea that I would try to run in a time of 3 hours. So with Liz. So Liz and I had done a decent training program leading up to it. But what I didn't know at the time is that I sort of completely messed up my taper with too much racing too near the end of the training and hard gym work that I maybe wasn't used to. So in I went, not knowing this, to try to run a 3 hour marathon. And it was a 2 loop race. And by the time I got halfway around, I had done the first loop, I was completely exhausted. And the temptation I had to drop out because you come round to the finish line was huge. And in fact, one of our friends, Guillaume, he said to me afterwards, he said, "You looked extremely tired, Alan." I said, "I was." He said, "I thought you were very courageous to go around again for a second try, looking as tired as you did." I don't know whether it's courage or not, but I guess fortunately or unfortunately for me, I had just at that moment finished reading the book Do Hard Things by Steve Magness. So I was armed with some newfound tools, and I was able to make a calm decision, as calm as you can be when you're exhausted halfway through a marathon, a calm decision regarding what I was going to do regarding the second half of the race. And I was able to, I think, embrace the reality of the situation, which wasn't a great reality, but I didn't overplay it. And I was faced with an unexpected challenge in terms of trying to get around the second half with no energy. And I think I was able to respond to that in a manner which, because I had the learning from the book, a manner which gave me some benefits, lots of disappointments, but some benefits from what was in fact a terrible day at the office. Hi, and welcome to Running Book Reviews podcast, where we review books written for runners, about runners, and by runners to help you decide if you'd like to read the book for yourself. We also hope that listening to us chat about running can help keep you motivated about your own running, or maybe inspire you to try something new. My name is Alan, and with my co-host Liz, we're going to talk today about the book Do Hard Things by Steve Magness.
Do Hard Things is a book about toughness and how we all probably think of toughness wrong. Toughness has long been defined as an absence of weakness, but this book challenges that with research to back up the author's claims. In addition, the author proposes 4 pillars for all of us to become more resilient. Pillar 1 is ditch the facade, embrace reality. Pillar 2, listen to your body, which we wouldn't usually associate with toughness. Pillar 3, respond instead of react. Pillar 4, transcend discomfort. So a little bit about the author. Steve Magness is a world-renowned expert on performance. In addition to the book we're talking about today, he's the co-author of Peak Performance, The Passion Paradox, and the author of The Science of Running. Magness has served as an executive coach to individuals in a variety of sectors and as consultant on mental skills development for professional sports teams. His writing has appeared in Outside, Runner's World, Forbes, Sports Illustrated, Men's Health, and a variety of other outlets. In addition, Steve's expertise on elite sport and performance has been featured in The New Yorker, Wall Street Journal, The New York Times, The Guardian, Business Insider, and ESPN The Magazine. Steve received his undergraduate degree from the University of Houston and a graduate degree from George Mason University. He currently lives in Houston, Texas with his wife, Hillary. Once upon a time, he ran a mile in 4:01 in high school. At the time, the 6th fastest high school mile in U.S. history. So he was also a really fast runner.
And he's obviously run fast to get away from us because he isn't here today.
That was a good one, Alan. So because we don't have him on, so we're going to just chat about the book. In particular, we're going to go through seven sort of not topics, but like 7 questions that we've asked ourselves, starting with why did we want to read this book in the first place?
Because we like reading running books, of course.
That is the perfect answer, Alan.
But also because we want to do hard things.
We do want to do hard things. That is like, yeah, that's
So the
motivation
title of
number
it
one.
really just sucked us in straight away. When we saw it, we went, oh.
Yeah. It's like, well, sub 3 hour marathon, it's obviously hard since I've been trying to do this for a decade
Yeah, I
and
mean,
haven't
for
achieved
us,
it.
I always say that it's sort of on the edge of our envelope. I always think of, your ability to be a sort of a curve where, on a really good day, you can achieve something. Some things you only got to be your normal self to be able to achieve them. And some things you've got to be an extremely good version of yourself to achieve them. You've got to have the training, you got to have physical capability, you got to have the mental prowess, you got to have the strength, the confidence, and I get a lot of planets aligning and get quite lucky with weather and stuff like that. So I always figured that those things are sort of quite out of far to reach, on the edge of the envelope. And that's kind of what I view as being, a difficult thing. And I think the 3 hour marathon for us is in that sort of region.
It is, because it's like on the edge of what we can do on a good day without all the weather and hilly course and all that kind of stuff. Actually, the title of the book, one thing that it reminded me of was because Andre follows cycling, or well, he doesn't follow it as much as he used to, but there's a cyclist, and he's since retired, but his name was Jens Voigt, and he's known for the phrase "shut up legs."
Yeah.
And so he's kind of known as this guy that can really push to the well when needed, and like he actually prides himself on it. And there was one time I heard him say in an interview, or maybe it was in an article, that he thinks that the only reason that he was at a high level like he was in cycling was because he could push himself that hard, because he didn't see himself as talented or anything like that. He just was able to dig really deep. And so I guess like when I looked at the cover of this book and read the title, like it a little bit makes me think of like, well, maybe his secret is in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what
And
do you conclude on the end of that? Is there a secret in there?
I think the answer is like not really one answer. And it's just that he's just able to use all his skills at the right time. It just seems like from the book, there is not really like one strategy that you can use all the time. And as long as you figure out what that strategy is, then you'll always get it right. Like that's not the message in the book at all. It's more like there are different components of toughness. And then even like in the last section, which is Transcend Discomfort, which is a lot of what we have to do in endurance running or endurance sports of any kind. Well, even that, it's like, well, there's all these different strategies, and you just have to pick the right one for the moment.
Well, it's some extra pieces to the jigsaw puzzle. You thought you were making a 100 piece junior jigsaw puzzle, and now that you've started it, you've actually worked out it's 1,000 piece puzzle.
Yeah.
And by the way, all the pieces are just blue sky. So fitting them together
No.
is going to be harder too. So I think that's kind of what you're saying in the analogy terms, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
I think going into the book, and you would probably agree with me because we've done quite a lot of reading around, mental approaches and things like that with various other books. We kind of knew that it wasn't going to be like macho stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, here's the trick: you just have to do this to switch your brain off, and you just go and switch off your pain receptors and just ignore that and just plow through.
Mm-hmm.
I think we sort of knew it wasn't going to be that.
Yeah.
And probably knew that some of it would be counterintuitive, so there would be sort of things to learn.
Yeah. I was pretty much going into the book expecting that, because we already read like mental training for trail running, which is Eddie Bracey's book.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And so we kind of, I think, like, I also kind of went into it being like, well, the title looks very appealing. It's saying do hard things, which makes me think that after I read this I could do hard things. But I mean, I knew that it wasn't gonna be like a 10 steps to getting it right all the time kind of book, because it's just not the way that that it is.
I think you have to have the training so that you have the confidence and the physical capability to do the thing that you're going to try to do. So you need some, you can't say, well, I'll just be mentally correct and not do any training and it'll be fine. It won't. One, because you're not physically ready. Two, your mind knows that you're not physically ready, and therefore your mind is not ready.
Mm-hmm. But the opposite is also true.
Yeah.
Like, just because you have all of the training, like you did all the tempo runs and all the fast runs and all the proper lead up and the mileage, and then you could still underperform on race day. And so I guess basically it's sort of still only half of the puzzle. Like, you're not just gonna have a superb mental game on race day and be able to achieve everything you want to achieve. Like, you still have to do the training, but it's not the training alone that's gonna get you to achieve your potential, whatever that is on race day.
I.e., the mental approach is going to count for a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the question for us towards the end is, do we have some mental approach things that we need to bring that we're not bringing? Or we're going to get into the what have we learned or how have we changed, I guess.
Yeah, so I guess we can go into our second question about our reading. Did we learn something that we didn't know before? I guess there were a lot of little tidbits of information that we'd heard before, but there were an equal amount that we hadn't. And one of the ones that stuck out to me, because I wrote it in my notes, and it's a little silly, but he talks about the movie Inside Out. I don't know if you've ever seen that one, Alan, but it's a cartoon, and I think it's a Pixar movie, and it's like there's all these little characters and they're all emotions.
All the emotions are characterized. Yeah.
And they're inside Riley's head. So Riley is a girl, and so they're all trying to get control of the control board. And they like fight over the command center. And it's pretty
different
funny.
Emotions have kind of got the wheel at any one time.
Exactly.
Or taking over and driving the ship.
Yeah, exactly. And like at first they don't really work together, and eventually like they start to try and like work together as a team in order for Riley to I guess be successful. And it's pretty funny because that comes from research. Apparently researchers identified 7 subselves. So we have self-protection, mate attraction, affiliation, social status, kin care, which I guess means just like wanting to care for your children and your family, and disease avoidance. It's so funny that disease avoidance is one of them. But so apparently we have like little subselves that are all like vying for attention.
I think the thing that's first struck me about the stuff we didn't know before, I kind of did know it, but it was brought home much more clearer, was that military boot camps have been misinterpreted.
Yes. Yeah.
I guess to begin with, I thought, well, military boot camps are like the sort of stereotypical symbol of toughness, and they've been done wrong by the military to portray a type of toughness that's not going to really work fundamentally. So I kind of thought that, but sort of Steve Magness reveals that no, actually, they were designed to achieve some correct things, but we've misinterpreted them wrong. We see, sergeants shouting at young soldiers and putting them through terrible ordeals to toughen them up.
When that's not the full picture.
Fundamentally, what they're looking to do is not to make them, hard and physically tough, but to give them scenarios where they can work out, sort of try to think their way through, work out how they're going to deal with the issues, and also to give them a common challenge so that they can become a team and work as a team. So work collectively against a challenge to overcome, be it the sergeant themselves or whatever challenge the drill sergeant is giving them. And that, sort of the cinema has sort of taken the other aspects of it, sensationalized it, and led us to sort of misconstrue what boot camps are about.
Yeah, because the whole other half, like the 50% that we're missing in all the all the movies and everything, is the portion where they teach them how they should react in a situation. So there's a whole teaching process first, and then they're dumped in all kinds of situations. It's not just like they take people off the street and put them in all these situations and the toughest ones survive. No, they're actually taught how they should react, and then they practice it and they become tough. It's not like they just come off the street, being having all the right tools. I guess another thing that sort of stuck out to me as I was rereading my notes was I had written down, in order not to panic, our perception of effort and our feeling of effort needs to match. And so that kind of just reminded me, because I know we've had that in some of the other mental training books that we've read.
Yeah, that was probably in the the first pillar, embrace reality.
Yeah, and I think like it's something that's hard to do, because for me at least, I know that sometimes if during the taper before the marathon there isn't any more hard workouts for a long period of time, it's like I forget what that feeling feels like. And it's a little bit of a shock then when you like encounter it in the marathon itself.
I think that's the same for everybody to a larger or lesser degree.
Yeah, I guess so.
And I think the thing is, you learn that from experience, and then you go, okay, I know from experience that this is my perception being changed by my environment and not the reality. What I need to do is embrace the reality. So I think what Steve Magness is saying is there are almost two realities. There's one playing in your head, and there's kind of the real one, whatever that is, that actually exists. And if you're good, if you're experienced, if you're capable, you match those two things up exactly as possible, which is sort of a bit impossible because you are who you are and you react how you react. But there are tools you can use. I just gave one, which is experience. If you've experienced something, or if you are able to learn from others, the ways in which you can level that up a bit.
And that's where, if you don't have a lot of experience, well, visualization can kind of fill in the gaps, because as long as you visualize race day, but with the challenges, not visualize a perfect execution of race day with you feeling all fresh at the end of your 42 kilometers, which is unrealistic, then visualization can serve as experience, because your brain doesn't really know the difference between,
but
a good simulation.
But real simulation, real visualization is actually quite hard to do.
It is.
Because you skip over the nasty bits.
Yeah.
You go, oh, I'm visualizing me running really nicely through the woods, and oh, the birds are singing. And you don't visualize too much the harder bits when it's going to get really tough.
Yeah, it is hard to do. I remember trying to do it when I was running cross country with Concordia University. And we would have, actually, to help us out, what we would have is a recording of the race course on YouTube, but it would be just somebody cycling through the race course, but at the same speed that you'd be running. So approximately like 20 minutes for 5K, let's say. And so it was you could watch it, and it really helped with like putting you in this scenario, because then you really, you feel like, okay, I'm still going up the hill. It's not like, oh yeah, I just got up the hill, because in your mind you can like fast forward certain
Yes,
areas.
I'll just mentally fast forward myself over this hill because it's hard work.
Yeah, exactly. So with that video, I found that it was a little easier, because then you didn't fast forward over the hill.
So
But
then
I mean, it was
did
still
you have
hard.
to sit through a 3-hour one for the marathon?
I've never done a marathon 3-hour
Visualize it.
one. No. Yeah, no.
It's a bit more difficult. And then if you have to do an ultra marathon, or you have to do one of those backyard races, what are you going to do? A 100-hour visualization?
Yeah, I guess that doesn't work, eh? Yeah. Well, that's a big commitment.
But yeah, I think the concept of it is excellent, and the idea is, I think what Steve Magness says is that if you can put yourself mentally at a point where you think you have the means to deal with it, then the challenge, the thing that you're trying to, the hard thing that you're trying to do, is less of a stress in terms of a threat on you. Like, oh God, I'm going to die when I do this. Something sort of destabilizing, that kind of language, and more, okay, I have a challenge in front of me and I have some ways to deal with it. And so, it's about appropriate goal setting versus your fitness and harsh reality. I think the book that we talked about by Matt Fitzgerald, called The Comeback Quotient, he talks about, some of the superstars who are making comebacks are what he called ultra realists. So they're able to assess very, very, very finely exactly where they sit in order to bring the maximum amount of effort to the situation that they have. They'll fall over in a race and get up, and they won't go, oh, well, that's my race gone.
No.
Gone. They'll go, okay, I've lost 2.4 seconds there, I think, and it's going to cost me this amount of energy to get back. I better do that over a period of time and not do it all in one panicky movement, and those kind of analytical things in the moment. They don't get managed by the situation. They try to manage the situation. But that takes practice.
Yeah, I know. That's why it's a skill, because like you can't, I mean, I don't think you're just born with it. It's something that you have to learn. The next question, did the book change something in our life?
We'll certainly learn some things. Did it change something in our life? Certainly not going to change my life. But it probably would equip me better to deal with hard things. For example, the marathon in my story. Maybe I'll just talk a little bit about that for you. Just say the thing you were just about to say. In the marathon in my story, I really thought, well, I should save my energy and drop out. I'm clearly going to have a very bad result. And rather than just do that because I had those terrible, exhausting feelings, I kind of said, okay, well, that's one option. The other option is to keep going and run a time that's going to be well below my expectations. Below meaning slower than my expectations. And what am I going to get out of that? And I was able to, while I was running and getting quite tired, was able to sort of think through, okay, what are the pros and cons of those things? And I thought, well, keeping going, I'm going to, one, I'll finish, and I'll be proud to have finished under that pressure. So I'll get a mental feedback, which is I'm tough. And I did that, and I did get that feedback, because it didn't feel very comfortable at all. It was extremely difficult, because you passed me in the middle of it while I was going through it. and it was a slog, and you're kind of not proud of your performance. And
Mm-hmm.
so you go, okay, I know I'm not going to be proud of my performance, but I'm going to be proud of my mental attitude towards where I am now at this time. And I'm going to get that out of it. And I'm also going to get the experience of suffering. So I'm going to get the feeling of learning to cope and deal with, oh, there's another 15 minutes of this. How am I going to possibly survive? Well, you are going to survive. You will survive. Um, and and the thing was, I was able to do that in a very conscious way. The pillar 4 in the book says, transcend discomfort. So I was able to push myself into that discomfort. I probably slowed down quite a bit in the second half. Yes, I definitely slowed down. So I took some of the discomfort off from that point of view, but it felt to
Mm-hmm.
me like it was all I could manage
Mm-hmm.
with the level of energy that I had. But I think the good thing was I was making a conscious assessment and getting some tough stimuli and responding to those stimuli, not getting a reaction and then just my body having a reaction and then mentally just reacting to that and just saying, okay, it's bad, it's not good, I'm dropping out. But
Yeah.
able to go through an analytical sort of process and say, okay, I'm deciding to do this given all the signals that my body's getting, etc. And I think that was a sort of thing that I took out of the book a little bit. And to some extent, you can do that for anything that's a challenge. The trick is not to react immediately to the stimulus, whatever it is.
Yeah. It's I guess it's like that's where the creating space would come in.
Yeah.
Like he talks about that like a lot later in the book, but sometimes it's like your reaction right in the moment would be like for you coming around the corner where the finish line is would be like I could just drop out right here. And I mean, I did think the same because I was at that point still behind you. Um, and like I knew that I wouldn't be anywhere close to 3 hours. And I don't know, I guess a naive part of me still thought like maybe I could save this and maybe I could get a personal best because my personal best is like 304.5. So, it's quite a bit slower than 3 hours. So I thought like maybe there was a chance that I could do that. But later I found out that that wasn't going to happen either. But yeah, I guess for me, um, it's a bit like you. Did it change my life? Well, I mean, I guess it rekindled my desire to learn more about managing difficult situations in a race.
I think Steve really talks about this stuff that we're talking about now in pillar 3, which he calls respond instead of react,
Mm-hmm.
which is what you said, create a space to have a calm conversation with yourself.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how calm the conversation was with myself. It was more like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Calm down, calm down. Yeah, but I'm going to die. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're just hurting. You're just hurting. It's kind of the conversation's a bit like that. It's
Yeah.
not too calm. Maybe I'm just not very good at it. But the idea is you create a space, and then in that space you evaluate and you choose your response.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that for me in that same race, I don't think I ever really thought about the dropping out part because I mean historically, well, I've never actually dropped out of a race. And also like and I've run, I've attempted 3:15 marathon and come in 4 hours. Like that's how bad. Like I was walk running by the end. It was a terrible
Mm-hmm.
marathon. But I still didn't drop out. I think like that's never really a question. And not because I'm some kind of hero. I think the only reason that's never really a question is because I've never really seen that as the option, because you train, especially for a marathon. Like here you are, you've done whatever, 4 months of training or whatever you ended up doing, and you lined up, you've tapered for the last 2 weeks, you've carbo loaded. And for me, it's just like, not, I mean, unless you're sick and you don't start the race, or something happens, or there's I don't know, a tornado in the middle and they need to cancel it, like that's different. But unless something happens, it's like, I mean, the marathon is part of the schedule, I guess. It's like, well, you've planned all this taper, you did all the taper, and then that after the marathon, you have like a whole bunch of recovery to do, because like you're going to have a week or two that you're not running. And so for me, it's just like, I'm not going to drop out, because like there's nothing after. Like I haven't planned anything after. Like this was it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've dropped out of a race where I've had an injury that I was healing from, and I actually felt it kind of react in a bad way, and wasn't really able to continue, and knew that was kind of an injury.
Yeah.
Probably couldn't have continued with the injury. It was like a quad tear.
Oh, yeah. No,
So
you would have done a lot of
I just
damage.
stopped and walked off the track.
But
And
I
it
think a
wasn't a
lot of,
track, it was a trail. So I just walked off the trail because I knew I was just going to put myself further back for my next event.
yeah. But then in a way, it was like, was it pre-planned a little bit? Because the thing is, yeah, sometimes you start a race where you're not, like, you are kind of borderline injured. And so you do kind of know that, let's say, I don't know, maybe you have a plan, like if you feel a certain way, like you'll drop out because,
Yeah, I guess it was always in my mind that, this is fine as long as my healing quadricep holds up.
yeah.
And I got a very distinct reaction at one stage during the run that said, "Oh, something's gone wrong." It was clear it didn't, and I pulled out. And I guess that was a sensible decision.
Yeah, I would say that's just being smart. Like I've never really been in that situation.
Probably if you're being calm and you're going, okay, what's happened here? Can I continue? No, I can't. I'll need to drop out. I've never dropped out of a race before because I hadn't at that point. I've never had a DNF ever in my life, and here I am now. What am I going to do? Kind of the tough decision is you need to drop out. You can't go being dogmatic about it and saying, I don't drop out of races. That's the sort of the macho taking over and taking control, and not you using your head.
Yeah, that's the opposite of what Steve Magness has taught us in this book.
I don't know. Maybe it is what he's taught us. He's taught us to evaluate the thing in a real fashion. Evaluate your hard thing in a real fashion.
No, I meant about the don't be so macho.
Oh yeah.
Like that's kind of
Yeah.
like not the idea of being tough in the first place. Toughness is a bit more than that.
Yeah,
So
toughness is about dealing with reality and making conscious decisions.
yeah, I guess for me, it's just I've never, I've there was one race I didn't start because of an injury. Like I didn't even get on the start line, but I've had injuries and shorten my training a lot.
Yeah.
As you know, 2 years ago,
Yes.
training for another sub 3 hour marathon that didn't happen. But yeah, I've had a lot of that, but I usually managed to get on the start line, except one time when I didn't even get on the start line. So I never really, guess, was in the situation where I had to drop out because of an injury. But for sure, I think that's a smart move on your part, because
I think this approach as well for people who are not sort of terribly aware of this sort of quiet, calm, evaluative reality check approach to toughness. If they're not aware of that, if they tend to have knee-jerk reactions or be overly macho, there's quite a bit of life-changing potential in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think people say to me, "Oh, you're." Mostly people say you're pretty tough. They see me toughing things out, and go, "Oh, you're tough." And I like to think that I'm tough, but I like to think that I'm not stupid. But I've ended up at the end of races on in med tents more than once. um, but I've been okay. Mostly I've just been nauseous. I've got some sort of nutritional problem to
Mm,
to to get round. But I think if you're a person who just tends to have a knee-jerk reaction and think, I could never do that, or it's easy for them, but that's not me, or any of those sort of reactive things, like I'm not the kind of person who can achieve those kind of things. You're
yeah.
making a knee-jerk reaction. You haven't done the evaluation,
Mm-hmm.
or you haven't invested the time to build your confidence up to see the reality of the situation.
Yeah. On the topic of confidence, I came across something in my notes, and you know how like we've learned that we shouldn't have negative self-talk. But actually, Steve in
Mm-hmm.
his book, he said um, something like positive self-talk works the best for people who have good self-esteem to start with. So,
Well, yeah, of
um,
course, because people with good self-esteem to start with believe their own positive self-talk, and positive
yeah,
self-talk only works if you believe it.
yeah, that's the secret, is the belief part. But I think you can be positive and have low self-esteem and still believe it, because like it depends what you
You
say, I
can.
think.
I find sometimes, I don't know whether you'd agree with me here, but I find sometimes when you and I talk, I'm trying to use logic to convince you of things. I don't know whether I'm trying to convince you or I'm trying to convince myself, but I'm usually saying it to you. So
Mm-hmm.
examples would be, we'll talk about whether, I don't know, whether a 3-hour marathon is achievable or not, and I'll give you evidence why it is. So, well, we've done
Mm-hmm.
this training, we've done this types of results, we've gotten to this point, and it's clear that if we could do this and this and this, and this would work for us, it can be delivered. And I think my background is, I was sort of, let's get in deep and personal. I was sort of raised as a child with a lot of support around me, and to some extent love, and um lots of sort of pseudo parents, aunts and uncles
Mm-hmm.
and things, kind of looking after me. And I think I was always quite good at school in terms of subjects. And I always had from a very young age, a degree of self-confidence, not arrogance, but
Mm-hmm.
a thought that I could do things,
Yeah.
not necessarily physically, mostly mentally, sort of, I'm smart, I can work things out.
Yeah.
Um, and
Because you
there was
had
a
that
lot,
positive feedback
lot of
loop.
positivity around me. And so what I find now as an adult, when I get into positive self-talk, come on, you can do this. You can. I have the foundation that makes that work for me. So things like
Mm-hmm.
mantras are very powerful for me because of that background, I think. And this is the sort of thinking you get into when you read Steve's book, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
You go,
So,
okay,
I
why,
mean,
why does that work for that guy and it doesn't work for me? And that's what you got to do. You got to work it out for yourself. What works for you?
yeah. And what do you believe? Because for
Mm.
me, I feel like I'm not the same person in every situation. So like let's say, because I did have some positive you know positive adults in my life when I was growing up, but they weren't family. So like, because I didn't have a lot of family, because my parents were immigrants and they were not the positive type. So they were, you know, they weren't about, you know, cheering you on and you did so good. They were either neutral about some things, so didn't say anything, or they were telling you did it wrong. So like that's the realm that I had at home. But then when I went outside of the home, I had, you know, I would have teachers telling me that I'm smart because I was like good at math. So for example, like I feel like I have a high degree of self-efficacy, which is one of those things you learn in all these books you read in, let's say, school, because I know that, because like I have the background of being told, well, you know, you're smart. So I figure that I should be able to figure it out if other people are able to figure it out. And so if I see that, you know, other people in the class, let's say, are able to do this math problem, I figure, well, I should be able to do it too, right? Because like I've been told that at school I'm smart, but I don't have that, let's say, in other areas like the workplace. Like, let's say, for example, there was a time in my life where I thought I wanted to be a manager. It was when I was working in a grocery store, and like I really loved that job. I was good at the job, but as soon as I said that I wanted to, because in the grocery business, just a little background. You can cut this out if you want, Alan, later, but
Sure.
so what happens is in the grocery business, at least, you know, or this is how it was when I was working in a grocery store between 1997 and 2004. The way that they got managers was they would promote from within. So it would be employees that would then be sent to like head office to do like a course, because it's a bit of a different retail environment than, let's say, other types of retail. And anyway, so I knew that it was possible to go into management through that kind of avenue, and I really liked my job, and so I thought like, oh, this is my place, you know. I could maybe be a manager one day, but I was told that I don't have the character. And so what they meant by that was just because like I didn't say a lot. I was kind of shy. So they were like, oh, well, you won't be able to like tell people off when they're like not doing their job kind of thing. And so,
you're not an in your face type of person. So you don't come across to somebody who doesn't know you as
exactly.
as confident and capable.
Yeah. So then, well,
You're
what ended up
probably a lot
happening
more
was,
confident and capable than a lot of the other people who are kind of better PR agents than you.
maybe. Yeah, I mean, but I mean, I'll never know because now it's not my goal anymore.
Yeah.
I've switched industries. I went to school, so you know, I ended up out of that industry anyway. And yeah, so if you take me in the workplace, I'm very much like, you know, you sit me at a desk and you pay me to do something, and I will do a good job at that something, but I'm not gonna um I'm not going to strive to like, you know, be the CEO of the company, because that's like what I was fed. But, you know, if I follow the same logic as when I was going to school and I was told that I could do anything, that I could learn anything that anyone else could learn, in theory, that doesn't make sense, right? Because I should still be able to learn to be a manager, because I'm able to learn everything else. Like I'm able to learn math and, you know, so anyway, that's sort of the.
So you have two different like images of yourself depending on your situation,
It seems
your
like I
context.
do. Yeah. It seems like I
So
don't have, and maybe I have more than two actually,
so
because.
oh no, I'm podcasting with a multiple personality disorder person.
Oh no. Okay, let's stick with two then. It'll be way more simple.
Can nice Liz come out and talk to me, please?
What's wrong
Sorry,
with
I
me,
hope that
Liz?
if we keep that in, I hope that's an appropriate joke and not offensive to anybody talking about those kind of things. Certainly not meant that way. What does that mean then for you, with respect to positioning yourself mentally for a tough challenge? Do you need to come from you need to try to come from a background which is more your positive side?
Yeah, it's hard to tell, but like I think I react in general in most situations better to something positive. But let's say if it's an area that I don't have all that much confidence that I'm good at, then I might need more proof, like things
Yeah,
like
that's
in
why I try to
running.
give that's why I try to give
Yeah.
you the logic.
Yeah.
I mean, I get the impression that if I said something that was negative to you, that you'd have more tendency to believe it than if I said that something was positive. You'd have more tendency to dismiss it.
Yeah. In general, I think you're right. That's probably an accurate assessment. But the thing about running is that I like running so much that sometimes, yeah, initially I might believe that, but then eventually I'll want to take it apart and see if it's really true, because like I don't want it to be true. You know what I mean?
Let me ask you from the book at the start
Okay.
of the book. Let me ask you the $64,000 question.
Oh no.
Do you really believe that you're going to run sub 3 hours in October?
That's a tough one because history is not in my favor. But the thing is that I've had a lot of training partners in the past that, that have gotten there and beyond. So I like to think that, if they can do it, why shouldn't I be able to do it? Like I don't like to think that, that I've hit my peak already. So I guess the short answer is I do, but I have to constantly convince myself.
Embracing reality, you have to set yourself an authentic goal. It's clearly for me an authentic goal for you to do a sub 3 hour marathon. So, but you need to internalize that. It's
Yeah,
it's the sort of thing that when you've done it, you'll go, well, what was all that about?
I know. But the thing is, it's like it's so hard, right? Because it's been so long and it's been my goal for so long. And then I feel like, we've tried just in our training history, me and you training together for these marathon attempts. Like I feel like
Mm-hmm.
we've tried a few different things.
Yeah, we
And
have.
and so I feel like, every time I finish and I don't succeed, I'm like, okay, like maybe we just need to try this other thing next time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that keeps me going. But then I feel like every time I fail, it's like I'm running out of things to try.
No, you're one step towards the 3 hour marathon that you said and you believe is possible.
Yeah.
You can't, if you believe that it's possible, you can't run out of things to try because it's possible. So it's going to
Very
get
true.
done. It's just a question of how many tries you have to have.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little bit my point. This is a private conversation really that you and I need to have rather than have it on the podcast. I hope the podcasters will send us an email or something and tell us if we should stop doing these kind of things.
Yeah. They should let us know, like,
But
well, can you
it's
just have your training conversations outside of the podcast and talk about the book? And yeah, we can make that happen.
yeah, your language tells me that you need some more a little bit more convincing.
Maybe. One more training cycle, Alan. One more.
One more, or maybe I've got some other ideas if this doesn't work.
I know what Andre would want me to do. He would just want me to go and run trail for a year and then run a marathon because he
Well,
thinks that's the secret.
yeah, it could be, but that wouldn't be my suggestion. But I
That's not
think
much.
it's by the by because it's going to get done in October, unless we get an injury or some bad weather conditions. I would
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
unless we get either one of those, if we deliver the training, and I think we're probably smart enough now that we can evaluate our response, our body's response. Pillar number 2 of Steve Magness's book is listen to your body. And I think we've developed an understanding of the training programs that we're doing. We've been doing Hanson, and we've been doing Fitzinger's advanced marathon program. And then we're now doing hybrid, based upon the feedbacks that we've got from our efforts with those. And I think we kind of should understand how to listen to our body a bit, so that if it gets too tough, because we're starting to up the mileage for this training program, if it gets too tough, we'll be able to give ourselves a break and adjust that. So it's not going to be the training, it's going to be staying fit. We'll adjust the training according to our needs and getting a good day on the day.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. I think we're a lot smarter, and we have all that experience. So
it would be shame not to be smarter after all the stuff we've been through and all the books we've read.
And all the books we've read. I mean, especially that, right? So I guess on that note, Alan, do you think there's anything missing in this book? Oh, actually, no, I skipped over a question. The next one was, is there anything we wish the author talked more about?
Yeah, I noticed your question, is there anything we wish the author talked more about? And then your other question is, there's something missing in the book. Well, aren't they both the same question?
I guess I was thinking like it, is there anything we wish the author talked more about, is more like a topic that he did talk about, but that maybe like you're particularly interested in, and then maybe wanted more to be, elaborated on more. And then is there something missing, is like, well, I don't know, is there anything that wasn't mentioned
in terms of what he would talk more about, I think,
but I guess we can lump them all like into the same. Let's just talk about both of those.
Okay. So really based upon what I've just discussed, where we've gone through our own scenarios and our own practical examples, I would have kind of liked if Steve had brought all his research cases and all his research studies and then applied them into practical examples a little more. Like, here's a guy I've got, this happened to him and this went wrong and he was doing this and then we did this and that made it more right. And then he went on to
because he does talk about himself a little bit, like himself and his own training and like things that happened to him. But it's true, he doesn't.
I kind of wish it had more practical case studies.
Yeah. I guess for me, I will say that, if he wrote 200 extra pages in this book, I would have gladly read them, because the book was super interesting. So he could have written anything. But yeah, I had the same sort of second thing that you mentioned, was like I had written that I wish Steve had made us like a mental toughness training plan at the end of the book, where you could have like a 3 months to a mentally tougher you, and then I don't know, have some kind
he does in the book. Where's my copy of the book? He does in the book actually have exercises.
He does, yeah.
But they're not super like
they're not
practical. They're more sort of theoretical type exercises, aren't they? I remember.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're I guess what we could do is we could like go through the book, pick them all out, and create a little weekly, you do one of these exercises per week kind of thing. But I guess in a way, like, you could probably put it together yourself, but I don't know. I would have been fun to have, although I guess it wasn't so much his goal, and there are other books that do exactly that, like, Kara Goucher's Confidence Journal. Addie Bracey does a really good job of that in her mental toughness for ultra running. So I think that maybe that just wasn't his goal. And you can't do everything in one book, I guess. But yeah.
I agree. It probably wasn't his goal, and he would probably have said that in the interview if he'd been here. You know, the book is sort of extremely well researched, so there's a lot of references to back up the various statements that he makes. But it makes it a bit more textbookish, which for you and I is not a problem because we're happy to wade through books. We're not looking necessarily to be entertained by all the books. We're looking to learn things from the books to some extent.
Yeah.
So to that extent, a textbook type, you know, a sort of school book style.
We like that kind of thing.
It's not terribly like that, but it's slightly like that, isn't it? And yeah, we like that. We go, okay, what can we learn from this? What do we take home from this? And you can tell by our conversation that, you know, we're thinking about how does that apply? How can we make it work? And, you know, probably our club members are sick of us by now because every week when we're, oh, we read this, oh, we should be thinking about this. And they're probably thinking, oh, why doesn't he just run?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about the TV. Yeah, Netflix series was really good.
Yeah. And you know, I guess
so for some people, more storytelling.
Yeah. I think Andre is one of those people because he started reading the book because like he was so convinced by us when we were talking about it, but like he's gotten you can see the bookmark here. I mean,
about 10% of the way through.
Page 33. So and then it's just kind of sat there, you know, with the bookmark in it at page 33.
He got really upset with me when we were at the gym because he said, "Oh, I'm reading it." I said, "You'll never finish it," because I know his style.
He really likes the story.
Annoyed with that.
He loves the story type books, I find. The ones like, and even when they're like very informational, but in a sort of story manner, sort of like Running the Dream, you know, that Matt Fitzgerald wrote. I think he read that one.
I said to Melanie and my wife about the book we're reading at the moment, which is not Do Hard Things, but it's similarly, you know, a learning book. She said, "Is it a good book?" I said, "Well, it's got no little doggies or donkeys in it."
Oh, because she liked
Sherman, yes.
Finding Gobi and
Finding Gobi and Running with Sherman.
Yeah.
By Chris McDougall. And she looked at me and she says, "Yeah, I like books with donkeys in them."
Yeah. I guess Andre's a little bit like that too. He likes the stories more than the like philosophical textbooks. Like, not that this one is. I would say that like it's not a textbook. It's very nicely written and it flows really well. But
so what message did we come away with? I think we've talked a little bit about that, but
yeah, I guess doing hard things is not just ignoring everything and pushing towards your goal. So I guess that's like sort of the main overarching message. And also towards the end, the fourth pillar, the ever popular knowing your why comes back. Because the fourth pillar is transcend discomfort. And a lot of that is knowing like why you're doing something.
Yeah, you anchor onto your why, and that helps you to transcend the discomfort.
Yeah.
I think I sort of tried to make a little note about what message did I come away with in as few words as possible. And I sort of said, reinforcing the book reinforces that toughness actually starts with your mentality towards yourself.
Oh, that's a good one.
So it's actually nothing to do with the thing you're trying to do to begin with. It's about your mentality towards yourself and not actually anything to do with the thing that you're trying to do to begin with. And it's almost you have to prepare yourself to come into the arena.
Yeah, that's true.
So to that extent, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
We spend all our time looking at, should we run a 3-minute pace? Should we run a 4-minute pace? Should we do 6 laps?
I know.
We're going to have those conversations tonight at the track. Oh, you're doing 6x800? Oh, I think that might be too many, you know? And we spend all our time on those things.
Yeah.
What am I eating? Have I got the right food? Or was that gym session too heavy? Should I be backing off? And we spend no time thinking about, okay, what sort of person am I? How do I mentally approach things? What's my reaction to certain things? How do I adjust that reaction to make it more favorable to success? We don't do any of that. We just are who we are.
Yeah. The thing is that we are who we are today, but we're not that person tomorrow. Like, you're different, which is I mean, it's sort of a recurring theme in a lot of the books, in a lot of the memoirs, like that you read about famous runners. And Hillary Allen is the perfect example. It's like, she had to learn that the goal was not to go back to being her old self. It was to discover what her new self is.
Embrace her new self and not look backwards and compare herself with her old self. Yeah. And I guess we're all doing that. It's just Hillary happened to fall off a mountain, so she got the added bonus of
it was
of
a bit
that.
extreme. But I guess we all kind of have to do that. Like, even if it's like, oh yeah, I wish I could be like I was 3 years ago because I ran this time and today I can't run that time. But actually, no, the idea isn't that you like go back and recreate the training you did 3 years ago, because like you're not the same person. But that doesn't mean that you can't have the same race outcome. It just means that like you have to figure out what person you are now and what'll get you to that outcome. So I guess it's
pretty good stuff.
The last one is just who would we recommend this book to? And actually it's perfect timing to talk about that. Because I think really everyone, because I mean, for sure, endurance sport athletes, like that seems to be, I mean, this completely applicable to runners and ultra runners and all those things. But at the same time, like it's also applicable to your life. And I think it would be also a good read for some parents and coaches, especially like maybe in those sports that like the type of coaching where the coach like yells at all the athletes all the time, because it really explains why that'll never work to create team.
The only way it'll work is if the team bands together because they all hate the coach.
Oh yeah, that would work. Yes,
I guess it works in the military a little bit, but that's not really usually very effective when you've got, I don't know, a kiddie sports team or something like that. Yeah, I did sort of two sets of people that I'd recommend the book to. Anybody who thinks they're not just trying hard enough, like I can't achieve it because I just need to try harder. Or who feels they can't do something that they would really like to do and they don't understand why.
Yeah.
Like somebody who feels that some of their friends have done sub 3 hour marathons and that they can't and they don't understand why. I would recommend the book to them.
I
don't know if you know anyone like that, Liz, but
I might have to reread this book.
So that was the first set of people. The next set was I think anybody who wants to understand themselves a bit more and build their own self-image. So, and that's got nothing to do to some extent with hard things. Once you've built your self-image a bit better, you could look at a hard thing if you wanted or not. Because I think a lot of it is about understanding yourself and mastering yourself better in order to step into the challenge, whatever the hard thing is. And to that extent, the big, hairy, audacious goal that we set ourselves, like a sub 3 hour marathon, something on the perimeter of you can see why it attracts people.
Yeah.
Increasingly, I think many people just go, oh, it'd be cool to go for that. Wouldn't that be fun to achieve that and feel that I've did that? And they don't really question why. But in fact, doing that gives you all sorts of understanding about yourself, or requires you to have all sorts of understanding about yourself.
And if you don't have it, then you have to try and figure it out
if it's a
along
tough
the way.
enough challenge, you've got to work those things out. Otherwise, you ain't getting there.
Mm-hmm.
So to that extent, to try to do hard things, in that it drives you to do that, to improve to make yourself a better person to some extent, is fabulous. I recommend
I agree.
everybody to take on a big, tough challenge.
Mm-hmm. And can be a private one, doesn't have to be like, I want to be the CEO of a company. It could be I want to run a sub 3-hour marathon.
Yeah. Or I want to be a better dad, or what,
Something. Yeah.
has to be a bit more specific than that probably, but whatever it is.
Otherwise it won't be a SMART goal.
Yeah.
That's a different topic, different book.
The thing I also like about I'm getting off the subject again. What I like about our stated goal of this sub 3-hour marathon is it's public. We're
Mm-hmm.
we're putting our, we're walking out there and putting our stake in the ground. I think that's really healthy.
Yeah,
I think we're not afraid.
No.
People go, are you going to try to go for it? And their response is yes. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to pretend something else. Oh, that's not embracing reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the reality is that we want this sub 3-hour marathon. And well, in my case, I mean, in your case, you already went there last year, but like for me, I mean, I want it this year. I want it to be October 1st.
It's interesting because during the conversation, I've changed from a person, just during this podcast, I've changed from a person who I think thought, okay, I achieved that 3-hour goal last year, and now I'll just go along with Liz and try to support her to achieve her goal. I'm now saying, no, I have an ambition to run sub 3 hours in October, and I'm going to do that. And that's a different type of ambition.
Yeah, that's true. It is, because it means you're more committed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not acceptable for me to mail it in, so to speak. I have to try to do it because of what trying to achieve that gives you as a person.
Yeah. Anyway, you know what that means? It means I'll have to get the same race shoes as you, Alan, because otherwise we won't know. If you achieve it again and I don't, we won't know if it's the shoes or not.
Should we keep race shoes discussion for another day?
Another day. Let's go on to opinions. What did we think of the book? Do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. A super well-researched book from a very knowledgeable author. A very knowledgeable author in terms of he's read all the research and has great running coach credentials as well. Not only coaching people to achieve great things, but also I think having a moral compass, which is good. We read a little bit about his background around the Nike Oregon project. He got out quite early. I think that speaks volumes for Steve Magness as a person. There are good pointers and tips of mindset and behaviors to enable you to deal with a tough situation. So that's mostly the book, really, isn't it? There are, as I mentioned, a few exercises in the book, which are not sort of case studies. They're more, think about this if you. So that it gives you some food for thought. Things like in transcending discomfort, think about bad situations, and then think about the emotions that generates in you, and then think about how you feel, and then how you deal with those things. So it's visualizing things going wrong, and then visualizing resolving. And then when things do go wrong, there'll be different things, but at least you've practiced your mental reaction to it. And then there are a whole series of maxims. So toughness maxims. So every so often he just distills a little statement out of the discussion and gives you, and there's too many really to list. They're just little,
I like those
little ones all the way through, which is good. Yeah. You go, okay, so what am I learning here? Well, you don't have to work it out. It's there for you in a little toughness
summary.
maxim. Yeah. Things to help you. Like an example of a maxim would be, your emotions are not dictators. They don't dictate how you respond, like in Inside Out, the film. Emotions are messengers. So they're telling you things. You decide afterwards how you react. You don't allow that emotion to cause you to react. You decide. You go, okay, I'm feeling fearful or I'm feeling anxious, but I need to put that to one side, or I need to listen to that. You decide. And that's important. You're in control. Your emotions are not in control. Your emotions are conveying something to you. They're messengers. That was one of the maxims. As an example.
There are a lot of them.
It's more of a textbook, so you should read it for learning rather than read it for like fun stories. There are anecdotes and things and experiences, but there's not so much stories. So it's more suited to a reader who's come to learn. I would say, all in all, pretty good read. Yeah,
I guess you summarized a lot of what I had written down as well. I guess in terms of the audience, anybody who really liked the book Endure by Alex Hutchinson will definitely like this book. It's kind of the same style. And then, I mean, just like with Endure, this book was divided into different topics and lots of science to back up everything. It was like it was well divided, and it's not so sciencey that most people would not understand it. It's the opposite. It's very easy to understand. There are some like examples that compare along the way, like what real toughness looks like versus like appearance of toughness. So he likes to compare those two. And like Alan said, the toughness maxim, those were great. Like they're all throughout the book. You'll have like a little summary. The only thing I guess I can add is that the cover art was great, very appropriate. It's a guy standing on one side of a mountain, and the mountain is drawn over the title. So you have like "Do Hard Things" written on the mountain, and you've got this guy on one side looking up, and the mountain is very steep. So it's the cover art I thought was very appropriate.
Yeah, the guy's so small, I didn't notice him on the cover art to begin with. It took me a few looks to see
that's how big the mountain is.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like to do hard things, Alan.
That's right. It looks insurmountable.
Yes. So great book. I loved it.
And we're going to have to reread it before we get our next marathon attempt, maybe.
Apparently, yeah. Thank you for listening to another episode of Running Book Reviews. Big thank you to the publisher, HarperCollins, for providing review copies of the book. If you'd like to leave us feedback about how we can improve the podcast or want to suggest a book that you'd like for us to review in a future episode, please leave us a comment on social media. We are Running Book Reviews on Facebook and Instagram, and on Twitter, we are reviews_running. Please also follow us on social media to find out about new episodes when they're released, or you can just subscribe to the podcast on your favorite streaming platform. If you've been listening to us for a while and are wondering how you can help us out, there are a few ways. If you are enjoying the podcast, spread the word, tell your friends, share your favorite episode with a running partner. You can also leave us ratings on Spotify out of 5 stars, or Apple Podcasts. You can rate us out of 5 stars, but Apple Podcasts, you can also leave us a review. And if you already have left us a review, thank you. We read them all, and they're very much appreciated. We are also on Buy Me a Coffee, where you can buy us a coffee Or you can just subscribe to get an email whenever we release like a little extra chat we had that was running related or sometimes not running related. That's it for now. Bye.
Bye.